Hi everyone, welcome to this video. This is the chapter 19. We are going to discuss today earnings and discrimination. This is a book of Gregory Principles of Economics. Then, first, remember that before we have discussed about how the market determine the wages, right? Then at the end, we know or we have noticed that different professions earn different wages. This is different a person who chooses software programmer and maybe someone who decides to pursue a life as a waiter. Then this could explain different decision how people they will like to continue or study throughout their lives. Then inside the information of chapter 18 we already had some information in order to decide or to understand this behavior, and we understood automatically that this is just the law of demand and supply and more quantity, because we know that this is attached to the marginal productivity of each worker. If the value of the marginal product or product of labor is higher, this should be reflected with higher salaries because you are more productive and you are bringing more revenue to your employer. So this is like the normal characteristic. Obviously, we already know that in the equilibrium, each worker is paid by their contribution. The more you contribute, the higher your salaries. Then we know that we actually in this throughout this chapter, which is actually more about different theories about why some people earn more and why others earn less, and this is actually not complete solved until today, because we already know that different characteristics provide that people earn more salary than others, but we don't have the specific formula that we understand why some earn more than others. Then here we're going to start with the determinants of equilibrium wages. We know that how the characteristics of the job affect. So then definitely there are these three different characteristics. From one side we have the labor demand, then we have the labor supply, and then we have the equilibrium wages. Remember, the labor demand is provided by the companies, the supply is provided by the people, by the workforce, and two forces combined as an output, we will find the equilibrium wage. Then we know that these wages, we will find that there are different characteristics inside these equilibrium wages. The first is the compensating differential. What it is about? We know that more people should be interested on easy, fun, and safe instead of hard, dull, and dangerous work. This is a differential work or different job. Then the compensating differential, remember that we are trying to explain why some wages there are different, and this should be one cause. Because the compensation differential try to offer higher salaries to incentive people to make these kind of jobs. Then at the end of the day, what we are trying to say is like people with the same characteristics, with the same level of education, but maybe with some difficult work, they will receive more. What is an example of that? A fisher or a fisherman in Alaska. This is a really dangerous work. Even you can lose your finger, your hand, or even your life. And you don't need to be a to have a PhD to follow that work. You just need to have, the guts in a formal way, be brave enough to have this work. This is not because of your level of education. So this is an important example or representative example of compensating differentials, where same people with the same characteristics, they receive more money one to another one, just because this is really dangerous. So this is compensating differential. Or the example could be coal miners. With the same level of education, they are compensated with more salary. Or workers in the night shift. Imagine a call center, for example, then you need to work during the night, you need to compensate it due to this effort, so then at the end of the day, you need to receive more. So this is compensating this differential. Another important characteristic in order to explain why wages are different is definitely the human capital. We already have heard about capital, so the physical capital. Remember that the physical capital is something that you really can measure. As an example, we can see everything you have in your company or where you work, or even in your faculty. For example, here in a company, you can see tractors, plants, tools, machinery, laptops, tools in general. But then the human capital, at the end of the day, is something that is an asset. It's something that is valuable by itself. And then we can maybe make definition to that. It's like the accumulation of investment in people, summarized in education. Then this is another example of differentials. Naturally, people with more human capital earns more on average. It doesn't mean that everyone with the same level of education will earn more than other with less level of education. But on average, it's expected. If you study more than other people, you have more training, then you need to receive more money. This is like the natural part. Then demands laborers will pay more to people with higher human capital. They have higher margin product. Then some way compensating differentials of becoming more educated. Why? Because you invest time, effort to develop those skills. For example, just simply as English, as a lot of people comment in my channel, that I don't speak the best English ever. But as a matter of fact, it's enough to work in English. So maybe in some way where I work right now, this should be compensated. So that's important part of this issue. Then here we have several cases of a study during this chapter that I wanted to share with you. This is the earnings gap between with high skills people and lower skills. They have increased. Okay, how follow here to this interesting table. We have here two groups, men and women, where we can all the time make differentiation inside the labor market. Unfortunately, here we have two periods of time. We have 1975 and 2011. Then here we have people. This is the earning during one complete year. Remember, we can compare two of them because this is we already have taken out the prices impact, so then we can compare easily between them. So here we have men with high school, it means no college or college graduates. So no college. So here we have $48,720 per year. In 2011, they will receive less. College graduates, they will earn this amount, and during 2011 this amount, right? Then you see here that the differential of studying was 42%, and here 25%. Here by women, we see an interesting gap here because obviously there is a gender gap between this and this year in both in high school and college students, and then here as well. You can see here how the differentials between inside women is 81%. But inside genders, we see again a difference. Okay, then as you can see here, the incentives to stay in school is as great today as it has ever been. So if maybe you're doubting of continuing studying economics or another career that maybe you're looking at my videos, you need to think twice, because even if it's hard, you will see different results if you study instead of stopping study, right? Then we have here two hypotheses. The first, this is remembered in the United States. So this is maybe associated with international trade. Why? Because imports of goods intensive in unskilled workers, so United States usually imports in these kind of goods, and they export them in skilled workers. So naturally, due to the law of demand and supply, the firms, they are more interested on hiring people with higher levels of education instead of hiring people with low level of education. So this should be a first hypothesis. The other one is just because technology. So due to more technology day by day, the companies, they are more interested in hiring people with more knowledge in this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, maybe it could be a mix. We cannot say that this is totally because of the first or because of the second. We can say that there is a middle point, that this is the base why this is still, there is a higher gap between college students and high school students. Then here we have an article in the news, so higher education as an investment. The first important fact is tuition has increased by almost 50% in the last 30 years. So it is a fact that it is more expensive to study. But also it is worth, because people with college diploma finds an easier way in an easy way employment than people with only high school diploma. For example, in 1980s they earned $4,000 more. Nowadays the gap is higher. They will receive $12,000 per year more compared if you don't study. In 1980s, the cost of a college was for 4 years $56,000. In 2010, 4 years of college costs $82,000. Then, in 1980s, you received $260,000 more annually, and today it should be $450,000. So then you see how the cost of college is growing. That's true, but the benefits are growing faster. Then higher education as an investment. Then due to this return, sometimes the governments in general try to incentive education to people. Why? Because this is the best investment ever. Then, even if you compare with the stock bonds, with stocks, with bonds, with all the stock market, this is the best ever, because you will have like best yields. Then, here is something interesting, because we already know that the principal differentials between workers is because human capital or compensating differentials, right? Because maybe you have you have employed more time of schooling, so this is representing a higher salary. But there are another theories that try to explain why there are still so differences between people with the same characteristics. So keeping those control. Then one is a natural ability. For example, is a good explanation in sports. There are people that they maybe practice 1 year football or soccer and they are much better than the same guy that practices the same quantity of time. So this is natural ability, and this can be explained in all fields you can imagine. Effort make differentiation among hard workers and lazy workers. It doesn't matter if you're at Harvard, you had gotten a Harvard diploma and you just stay on your desk doing nothing instead of another guy that is working hard. So then effort can make a differential to wages as well. And then chance could be another factor. For example, the oil and gas industry. You start to work or to study as a petrol engineering. When you go out, when you when you get a degree, the price of the barrel was $100. This is chance. You are receiving great benefits. Maybe you don't have chance. You're not lucky if you go out to that, and the price is $35. So it could be chance a factor to take into the consideration as well. So then we know that there are variables that can be measured as years of schooling, years of experience, age, and job characteristics. All of them just explain half of the variation of salaries because the other one can be explained by natural ability, ability, effort, and chance. Then, another case study, for example, this is different theories try to explain why the differential. Even beauty can be a factor. For example, a normal profession that come to our minds is about acting, because actors more attractive usually have more audience than larger income. So for example, there are two labor economists, Daniel and Jeff. They identified the salary of people interviewed by their usual information and physical appearance as well. They found incredibly that approximated 5% higher salary to people more attractive is what is called, after this research, the beauty premium. Then you can see that maybe in some work or some kind of works could be relevant as acting, sales, etc. Then beauty can be an indirect measure of other abilities. Some studies have informed that people that they are beauty or they are well presented, maybe they are more confident. They are, sure about what they are saying. So this could be better or fit better to different employee. So that could be a case. Then education, this is an interesting part because could be a theory of signaling. Remember signaling that we saw before? So the idea is it's easier to high ability people to get a college degree. Person with low ability maybe could be more difficult that they get a college degree, right? So remember in chapter 16, maybe you have a serial advertisement that is really nice. They represent and they hire a sportman really famous around the world to promote that product. It doesn't say anything about the product itself. However, if you can make signaling, you say, okay, if they are investing so much for that cereal, it's because that is good. They won't waste money investing in an advertisement that maybe on a cereal that it isn't worth. So maybe could be the same, because education can be seen as human theory and theory of signaling. This guy get a diploma, so this guy take an effort, this guy could be smart, and this guy can learn better than other person that maybe doesn't get a diploma. Then, according to human capital, invest on them will bring more productivity, more wages. So there are two views. One, signaling that I can identify with a diploma people that they have high ability, or maybe because really the education will bring more productivity. So then the wages will be higher. According to signaling, it will not affect productivity, and then neither wages. Obviously, it's really hard to say that this is because signaling or this is because human capital. We will say that this is a medium point. You need to learn something throughout your university, but obviously, this will provide information to the employer to say, okay, this guy maybe studied to this university, so I will say that this is harder than other one. So maybe I can hire this guy because this guy can put more effort and is like higher ability than the other one. Then we can explain here an interesting part. This is the superstar phenomenon. This is really nice because everybody says, you know, why this guy is learning so much money, is earning so much money. It's not fair or something like that instead of other people that they really work hard. So then you can see here, I have here two people from my country, James Rodriguez or James Rodriguez, how people say in the World Cup, but absolutely it's James, and Sofia Vergara. Then you will see here that even inside the same professions, there are differences with ability of and effort. Why? Inside James Rodriguez, there are a bunch of people that practice soccer everywhere. And inside Sofia Vergara, a lot of actresses that they are trying to become actress. But at the end of the day, they need to combine with another profession because this profession is not enough to make a living, right? Then even me, for example, I try to practice soccer. Now I'm making economics videos. Then why other professions as carpenters or plumbers do not take those salaries? Here we have James. I hope this Russian World Cup could be better as the previous one, Brazilian one, and Sofia Vergara, the beautiful girl. Then every customer wants to enjoy the best producer. Who is the best producer in sports? The superstars, the guy who play better, and the same as the acting. Then it is possible to supply every consumer to a low cost. You need to just turn on your TV and you can enjoy the magic of soccer, and the same of acting, of the TV series Modern Family. Then is really you have a low cost and you can supply everyone. Then Sofia can supply to many people as she wants. Similarly, the case of James, carpenter just low supply. So at the end of the day, this is why there is a huge differentials between these kind of professions. Then, if above equilibrium wages, minimum wage laws, unions, and efficiency wages. So remember, the idea of this chapter is try to comment different characteristics why the salaries are so different. So then, the wages are, we have seen, are determined by the law of supply and demand, right? Sometimes the wages are set above the equilibrium, right? So then, one example is because of minimum equilibrium wages. So then the government set up a law and they said, okay, we cannot offer, or companies cannot offer lower than this point of salary. This impact more least skilled and experienced are affected by this law. Why? Because they will receive more, but unfortunately, employers they can cut these kind of jobs easier, right? So then this should be the case. So other characteristic of other fact that can affect the salary is the market power of labor unions. So, for example, using sometimes the power of a strike. So we know that companies with union, they get usually 10 to 20% more for union workers compared with a company that they don't have any union. Then the idea, other one is like efficiency wages. For example, more company, usually multinational companies, they offer higher salaries, they offer bonuses, they offer different incentives to provide more or to take more productivity from their workers. So then they can reduce, for example, work turnover and definitely increase work effort and raise quality of workers that apply. This is all these characteristics obviously may increase in unemployment. Why? Here we have the wage as the price, we have the quantity, which is the labor, here we have the supply, and here we have the demand. Then when the salary is higher than the equilibrium one, definitely this is a disequilibrium because the labor supply is higher than the labor demand. Then this difference between supply and demand become to the word of unemployment. Then the economics of discrimination. Then discussing about other factors that provide difference in salaries. This is discrimination. This is a really sensitive topic because differences can be represented by discrimination. For example, similar workers with differences in race, ethnic group, sex, age, of other personal characteristics within the same job, they can receive different salary. Here, for example, this is an example with data. We have here men and women. We have difference between men and women in the same race. And here we have that. I don't know why the book uses black. For me, it's African American, but they use black. So the African American inside the race, these differences. There are differences because women obviously earn less, but within races there is a difference as well. So we can see here percent by which earnings are lower for African American workers. This is 21% and 11%. So this is more differences inside the men. And then here 25 and 15%, right? This is the data of 2011. Then we should consider as well as the human capital incidence. Why? Because we are talking about total population of different people in races. And we know that that's not true. This is not equal because unfortunately the access to the quality of education inside white people most of the times it's better than associated with African American people. So for this reason there is natural differences of salaries because they study better schools, so they study more than the other people. Obviously, it's important to take into account the difference between men and women. Sometimes we still see how in United States, obviously women need to raise children and they need to stop. So when they re-enter to the market, to the labor market, obviously they have less experience. So this is reflected automatically in salaries. So maybe even we are talking about discrimination, maybe this is not discrimination of the wage, but it's something behind. Discrimination on education, discrimination of cultural issues. So maybe this data cannot say by itself the total or the real quantity of discrimination. Then there is another interesting case that I wanted to present. Is about is Emily more employable than Lakisha? This is a very nice study that two economists, Marion and Sandhill, made. They try to find different help wanted ads run, and then they sent 5,000 fake resumes. The nice part here is like they sent with names of African American people, as for example Lakisha, and other with Emily. The idea or the answer is is astonishing, because white names receive 50% more calls. And it didn't matter different kinds of jobs, and even advertising of jobs that they say that they don't discriminate at all inside race or because of race. So then you can see how people or how the culture that we live, unfortunately, is still racist in some way. Then here, discrimination by the same employers. So we can see that there is the same group with the quantity of human capital and job characteristics equal. Why is there still difference? So maybe sometimes we can blame the possibles or blame the employers. But here is an important part. The profit motive can solve this situation. What is the idea of the profit motive? Then the profit motive is like, for example, when an employer chooses a certain group, the price or salary will be higher. Then at a certain point, the salaries will be equilibrated. The idea is like, for example, you start to work or to hire a certain kind of people because you think that they are better than the other ones. But then automatically the wages that you need to pay for them is really high. Then other companies or other employers, in order to equilibrate the situation, they can start to hire the people that they are not hiring by the other company because the salaries that they need to pay are lower. Then with lower cost, you can be more competitive in prices. So then you can see how it could be equilibrated. But here, as an example, in order to understand better this theory, is the segregated streetcars and the profit motive. Then here we have a streetcar, and then we know, unfortunately, that white passengers in the front of the car and African Americans in the back. Then this was due to a law. At the end, for the firms, this division made the operation more expensive. So beyond the problem, obviously, of segregation, even for the economic part, it was really more expensive. So then the profit motive can eradicate that and make everyone equal because could be lower, lower the cost, and they can offer a better price to the people. Then discrimination by consumers and governments. So profit motive can be limited sometimes by customer preferences and government policies. So for example, you can hire waiters that they are tall or waiters that they are short. For example, customer care profit motive cannot be enough. Why? If customer care they really prefer tall waiters, there should be a difference or a wage difference between tall and short waiters. So then there should be a gap between them and profit motive cannot be enough. Or maybe the government set a law, just allow waiters to be tall. Then because of a law, it could be a problem. So this should be an example of segregation in the streetcars where government set a law, they need to divide people and it should be like more expensive. Then when the market is complete free, the same market tries to eliminate such barriers. Then, as a last case study, discrimination in sports, sometimes it's difficult to measure productivity of workers, but in sports it's usually easy because in basketball, baseball, soccer, you can know throughout the statistics to establish who is better than other one, at least in the same position. So we can, or the study found how people, for example, prefer before white people even with the same characteristics instead of African American people. But these gap wages do not exist anymore. Then gender differences, less representation in high paying jobs, math, science and engineering jobs from the side of women. And then they try to find some explanations. So the starting explanation is about preferences, ability, and discrimination. And this was a studio that at the end they say that the study adds attitude toward competitive environments and men prefer more competition. And then this is in terms of average man of woman. It doesn't mean that all men they take more risk than women, but on average. And then the conclusion is like high performance women do not take risk, but low performance men do. So this is a really important fact. So maybe some psychological um, inherent characteristic can explain some way the wages sometimes. As a conclusion, just like the competitive markets, the wages are determined by the marginal productivity, and it's important to know that theory does not predict anything about fair, equal, or desirable. Okay, just they try to explain, years of human capital is important, compensation differential is important, but half of the story is still being told, because there are different characteristics that we still don't know that they can represent or they can explain differences among people. So that is an interesting part, because this is not like black or white. This is something to study in order to understand better differences in wages. Okay, that's all. I hope you liked your video and you become more interested in this kind of study for labor market. It's my pleasure to share this point of view. Have a great life. Bye bye.